Good evening. Welcome to Voices. Incest, child sexual molestation, pornography, sodomy, rape, exploitation. These are just some of the terms that we use when we describe child sexual abuse. This is Voices. Here we talk about abuse of both forms on Madhouse Reality TV. And I have a very special guest this evening, a very courageous young woman who is here to talk about not only her experience, but also her journey into healing using art. So I'd like to welcome Kacy Baecker. Welcome, Kacy, and thank you for coming on to the show. I've always been a fan of yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
There's a very sensitive subject, and I know it's hard for you to talk about, but child sexual abuse, so difficult. Most people do not want to talk about it. They don't want to acknowledge it even exists, and that there it is. It's there. And we don't even know how often it's there. So I ask you to tell us a little bit of what happened to you, and then we're going to talk about your healing path.
Okay. I actually only realized fully that I had been sexually, incestuously abused within the past 3 years or so. Before that, the memories were so buried, I wasn't even aware, which, as I came to find out, is quite common, actually. Yes. And some people never remember any of it at all.
Sure.
What I do remember is that I was molested by my father, and a lot of the times it would happen while I was sleeping. He would, come and lay down for a nap, and during that time as when he would either touch me inappropriately, and that's about to the extent of the visual memories I have. But between nightmares and other things, there's a lot of kind of unknown area where there's a very good possibility more has happened. I'm pretty sure that as an infant, there was inappropriate touching while I was being changed, because all of that just kind of, it seems very connected to everything that I have to go through now. Okay. And it comes up a lot.
Yeah. And however, you didn't remember
No.
until about 3 years ago.
Correct.
However, prior to the 3 years ago, what was going on with you that told you something isn't right?
Absolutely. I had this overwhelming feeling the majority of my life that there was just something wrong with me. And as a teenager, it's pretty typical, and most people just kind of shrug it off as, oh, you're awkward and you just don't know who you are at this point. But I always felt that there was something very looming and dark and hidden that I just couldn't put my finger on, and I couldn't remember. But it felt very real. And despite, I had many therapists. I had been in therapy since I was 5 years old. From my 5 years old, from the school in probably kindergarten, pre-K. And then as I got older, I ended up seeing my brother's therapist. And pretty much I was in and out of therapy from then until now, because I was very severely depressed. At the time, they were saying I had major depressive disorder, because that's all that they could understand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you didn't remember. So
I didn't.
You couldn't explain this.
I couldn't.
But 5 years old, very young, what kind of behaviors were you demonstrating that said to a teacher or a guidance counselor that, there's something wrong here?
I, as a younger child, was incredibly outgoing, very vivacious. I had no fear of people. I would go and talk to strangers. I was the life of the party type person. Then there was a sudden shift. And even in pictures, I can see it. I ended up gaining like 50 pounds or so in one summer as a child.
As a child, wow.
And I remember distinctly, as I got older, there was a point when I had been sleeping in the bed with my father, and he watched the show Matlock a lot with Andy Griffith, who was an attorney. Mm-hmm. And there was one specific episode where there was a little girl who had been molested, and they brought her into a separate room and had a doll, and she had to point out where she was touched because she was so innocent and they were afraid being in the courtroom would be too traumatizing. As I watched this episode, probably right after being molested by my own father in the bed, I remember getting up and running to the bathroom and throwing up violently and feeling sick and shaking and crying, but not really understanding why.
Wow, how old were you at that? Do you remember that incident in regards to age?
I was not in school, so I must have been young.
You weren't even in school yet.
Because there's three of us. My sister and brother are much older. They're 6 and 7 years older than me. I was the only one watched by my father. So...
Because your mom was working?
Was
your mother working?
Yes, my
Okay.
mother was working
Your mother was
full-time.
working, and your father cared for you.
Right.
Why wasn't he working?
To be honest, I don't actually remember. I know at some point he was in between jobs or had lost his job, but I'm not sure if that was then because I was so small at the time.
Sure.
I really don't.
Absolutely.
They don't discuss financial matters with me at that age.
Well, no, absolutely
Yeah.
not. Okay. So here you go to kindergarten, and they realize something is wrong. Because, what, are you not speaking? Are you crying a lot?
Very reserved, and I started constantly complaining about being sick all the time. I didn't want to go to school. I was a brilliant student. I did very well. I didn't want to go. I refused. I was sick every day. I would say my stomach hurt, and I would just fight. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go. And I couldn't really explain why. If they said, oh, you don't have a temperature, you have to go. I just didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to be around
home,
people.
They said, you don't have a temperature, you're going to school. Okay.
And everything just seemed so overwhelming. I didn't want to be around people. I went from someone who had no problem talking to tons of people to someone who cried hysterically, having to be put in front of a group just to read a paper. So there was such a drastic difference, they couldn't understand what had happened. And because of that, they put me in a trial group therapy in the elementary school to kind of, I guess they were seeing, if other kids needed the help, if it did any good.
For a 5-year-old?
Yeah, somewhere around 5 and 6.
Yeah. They put you in group therapy in the school. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so the group therapy was really nondescript. It was just to see what's going on with the children, and you never said anything.
There was really not much to say. I recall complaining about my father not loving me, because I was always afraid that my father didn't love me. Constantly, and vying for his affection more than anything, because he withheld constantly in front of other people the affection. When we were alone, when it had been nap time, he was very easy about touching me, but in front of other people, there was no affection. He didn't hug, he didn't kiss, he didn't say I love you. It was nothing. So it was very confusing.
That has to be very confusing for a child. How could they understand that? It's, I give you love, I take away love. I give you love, I take away. It's like punishment. But for what? You don't even know.
I never knew.
Well, it probably wasn't punishment so much as to keep the facade up.
Right. And I understood that as I got older. The problem is who my father was. He was an outstanding person in the community, and he also did a lot of work with counseling with other children, with the Hugs program, which is out east.
Oh.
And he
yeah,
was
I know this program.
Yeah, he was one of the, not a director, but he was one of the people on a board, and he handled work. He taught many of my teachers and my siblings' teachers about gangs and drug use and how to help children. He actually counseled one of my friends when he worked at another school while she was in elementary school. So he was very involved in the community, and people constantly put him up on a pedestal. But for me, I was like, there's two different people, because the man that comes home was more of a monster. But the people who everyone else is talking about, they couldn't give enough praises.
That has to be very difficult, because how does a child even if you wanted to, even if you want to, at that time, say, this is what's happening to me. But here's this person that the community looks up to. How is a child going to think, well, if I say this, are they going to believe me? You know, and I think that happens often, you know. Mm-hmm. People think, you know, this happens in the poor, lower class. Not necessarily so. So easy to hide if it's not the poor, lower class, if it's somebody upstanding in the community and everybody kind of like looks up to them. And then where is the child? Because it becomes your word against his.
Absolutely. And they would always take his word over mine. When I was actually in the trial therapy group, there had been an incident that I brought up that he had called me an inappropriate name. He had, you know, the female dog, he had used that because he was angry with me.
You can say bitch.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was censorship or not. All right, yes. He had called me a bitch. And obviously at the time, I must have been maybe 4 or 5 years old, 5, 6, very young, but I knew it was a very hurtful word. And it was because I was impatient about going somewhere. That was it. I wasn't doing anything abnormal for a child.
Yeah, not for a 5 or 6-year-old.
No, and my mom saw how upset I was, made him apologize, and his apology to me in the car was, I'm sorry, but that's the way you were acting. So even as a child, I knew that's not a real apology.
Oh,
at all.
I'm sorry, but I have to call you a bitch because I don't like the way you're behaving. It's not an I'm sorry.
So I told the therapist who was running the circle at the time, and she called my father. Needless to say, they took me out of that group for one reason or another. But he was so good at manipulating, he could find a way around it.
I can imagine if he's a child counselor and he's talking to you at school and you're telling him this, and of course he's going to rationalize and he's going to manipulate and coerce a little bit. They're not. They're going to think you've got an issue.
Right.
It's the child that has an issue and not the parent. And this so often happens. Kacy is talking about some of the feelings she had as a child, and at a minimum, a child will feel confused, they'll feel fear, they'll feel embarrassment, they'll feel guilt. That's a minimum. At a worst, we have depression, we have aggressive behavior, difficulty in school, self-mutilation. And we're going to continue talking about this in just a moment, right after this commercial. See you in a little bit.
Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware.
We have 3 of the largest showrooms of safes on display and in stock. You can see and touch them in person instead of browsing a catalog. We carry gun and rifle safes, burglary safes, jewelry safes, fire rated from a half hour to 2 hour. Famous name brands.
We sell Gardol.
We sell AMSAC.
The new AMSAC touchscreen.
If you're ever in need of a safe, think Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware. Right, Lockie?
That's right, Alan.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hogshair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly used in Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. During the show, you could call in at any time, 631-669-7999, to ask myself a question or ask Kacy a question about what has happened. Or if you want to share something that's happened to you, because this is a topic that not many people talk about or want to share about, and Kacy's very brave to want to talk about her experience. So we're going to come back to Kacy. Talking about your father being an upstanding individual in the community, and then you going through these issues. And at the time, obviously, since you were needing some therapy at a very young age, something was happening. But being a child, you weren't putting two and two together.
No.
Because how could you? How could you? You're a child. This is the way I love you. How would you know there's a different way to love you?
That was actually part of the problem, is because it had been going on since I'm pretty sure infancy, I didn't realize that it was inappropriate until I was watching that episode, I think, of Matlock, and that's when it all kind of sunk in, and I think that's why I had such a visceral reaction as I realized that all of this time, what I thought was his way of loving me was perverse and wrong and inappropriate. Because at school, they always teach you, stranger danger, the no zone, the bikini zone, but no one ever says if your father or your mother or your brother or your sister or uncle, they don't say that. They
don't say that. And they still don't say that. They still say if someone,
right?
But they never talk about, will this be, potentially a relative? And the reality is, most of the time, and not all of the time, child sexual abuse does come from someone they know.
Mm-hmm.
Not a stranger, although it happens, right? But it usually is, a father, a brother. It could be a mother, an uncle, a grandfather. I had a young lady that was 16, and they brought her to me because she was hearing voices. And one of her voices was a 4-year-old man. She kept calling him a boy, but she was describing a man. And I said, but you're not describing a boy that's 4. You're describing a man. No, he's 4. And I said, well, what is he telling you to do? And he's telling her to kill everybody in the family while they're sleeping. To find out that when she was 4, her grandmother's brother sexually molested her. And she never said anything. In all of that time, up to the age of 16, never said anything. It's kind of like, I don't know if she blocked it or she guarded it, but it became this voice in her head that was destructive. This is how it came out on her, and this is how we realized what happened to her. That for some reason she kind of got stuck with this 4-year-old, because she was 4.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a man that was hurting her. And so that was very traumatic and not expected at all at the time that she came to speak to me. But it happens. And it happens more than we like to talk about. Because, being in the business that I am, I do talk about it. And people are like, yeah, that doesn't happen. I mean, how often does that really happen? Well, a lot. I just read the National Children's Abuse and Neglect Statistical Database said in 2005 there was over 83,000 children reported incidences in this nation. Reported, because children don't talk about it.
Wow.
So how many have gone through the cracks that we don't even know about? And most of the time we hear about it, like yourself, as an adult who's able to now work through their healing and say something about it. But as a child, you never said anything about it.
Right. No, I completely blocked it out. Even though it was constant looming, and it's interesting, because of my father being in the psychological field, I had always mentioned to him I had this fascination with hypnosis because I felt like if I had gotten hypnotized, maybe it would uncover this one secret memory, like Pandora's box, that would let me know what was really going on. And he would constantly dissuade me, saying that the mind hides things to protect you for a reason. Now, at the time, I'm thinking, well, maybe he's right, it's too destructive. And after everything, I'm like, wow, what a jerk. He was really protecting his own skin at that point.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
It does.
You
It
know,
does.
and we would say something like that. I know that you actually confronted your father later on as an adult.
Yes, I did.
And how did, well, first of all, where did you get the courage to actually confront him with something like this?
Despite my appearance, I can come across as a very shy person, but when it comes to things that are really important to me, I'm pretty no-nonsense, and I cut to the chase. And before I had really delved in deep into confronting him, because I actually confronted him twice. The first time was before I knew all of the details and memories hadn't come back yet, and I asked him, had you ever done anything to me that could have been perceived as abusive or sexually inappropriate when we were napping? And he kind of looked like he glazed out for a minute and said, there's nothing that I can think of. You were a very sensitive child, was his response. You're a very sensitive child. I'm like, that's a good catch-all. Yeah. The second time I confronted him was actually after I had come out of a psychiatric ward. I had been suicidal since I was actually around 5, constantly obsessed with death and the idealization of just ending everything because it was incredibly painful to live. Not knowing why I'm so over-emotional, everything upset me, and certain things that I find out now are PTSD triggers, I couldn't understand why it didn't affect other people, but for me it was horrible. So I reached a point, I ended up in the psychiatric ward, and I got a lot of help. And once I came out, I felt that I needed to really confront him. Because during that period when I was in the hospital, he had been emailing me and was saying, I needed you there for me. I had to go to a doctor's appointment. I needed you to drive me. I needed you to do for me. Because that was the other part. You
needed to take care of him.
Right, because I'm not just incestually abused by him. I'm all other forms of abuse, except for physical abuse. That's pretty much the only one he didn't. But very emotionally manipulative and mentally manipulative.
Verbally. Calling a child a bitch at
oh,
5
yes.
is ridiculous.
And when I had gained the weight, which I also found out later, was to protect myself from him touching me. He was disgusted when I got bigger, so it was actually an encouragement.
Yeah.
And even now, when I lose weight and people give me accolades on it, I get so uncomfortable it makes me want to gain weight again. So it's very frustrating.
And that's not an uncommon response.
Really?
From what I've done some research, and I've seen with some of the eating disorders that sexual trauma, child sexual trauma for those who gain weight, is very much part of why they do it.
Yes. So getting back to what you were asking me, when I confronted him the second time after coming out of the psychiatric ward, I really felt that I needed to not put him in his place, but just confront the reality that I was saving my own life at that point. Right. I was taking care of me, which in that situation, if I hadn't done what I did, I probably would have killed myself and I wouldn't be here right now. So I did what was right for me. And when I went there at a diner with my girlfriend to meet him, and I just kind of laid it out and I said, I had to go into this hospital. I explained everything that had happened in the hospital because it was actually kind of a traumatizing experience as well. It was not one of the better psychiatric wards. And I explained it was because of being sexually abused by you, and I couldn't handle the emotion, and I really thought I was going to kill myself, so I apologize. It was an inconvenience to you, but this is the reality. I need to focus on me and take care of me. And at the same time, I had issues with my sister who had known. I told her about the abuse. She didn't know when it had happened, but I had told her before. And she now was no longer speaking with me because I refused to go to the police. She wanted me to go to the police and put a claim in, which is a whole nother story in itself. And I mentioned that as well to him. I said, my sister now no longer talks to me because I wouldn't go to the police and try to have them arrest you for abusing me over 20 years ago.
I'm not even sure what the statutory limitations on
There's
that
no
is.
physical evidence at this point.
You know, yeah.
So it really would be more emotionally traumatizing for me to have to
as they take you
relive
through the whole process. Yeah.
Yes, and I've gone through that process from being accosted from another situation. But his reaction to my girlfriend was definitely validation and confirmation that everything I believed had happened truly had, because for the first time in my life, this incredibly confident, self-assured man looked scared. He looked scared, and he didn't know what to say. And this is a man, I mean, literally, I have never seen him cry. Even if he was in physical pain, I have not seen a tear leave his eyes. And he looked uncomfortable. I could tell him anything in the world, and he would say, oh no, I already knew that. Someone else had told me. He knew everything. He knew everyone. He was perfect.
He was all that.
But in that moment, he was sweating.
And he didn't deny it.
No.
Because that would be the response, right? If I didn't do it, I'm like, honey, what are you talking about?
He did not deny it.
Didn't even deny it.
What was even more interesting was to note his reaction as he completely disassociated from the moment he was in and was saying, yes, it is very difficult for someone to be brought up on charges for those kind of things.
Oh, so it was back to him.
Yes.
It was all about him.
Of course, but he was actually saying it almost in like an advocate way of, you know,
right.
Oh, it's
somebody else, not him.
Yeah.
But it is about him, though.
It was very strange to hear.
It wasn't like it was so difficult for you to have been in that place and feeling the way you felt at that time.
No.
That brought you to that place. It wasn't about that.
No, he couldn't handle that. He had to go to the clinical side of it and the legal side of it, because that's what he's comfortable with. Yeah. That's what he can manipulate easily. So, I'm grateful I did what I did, because for me, even though I still, and this is another thing I've found is incredibly common with sexual abuse victims, the doubt of knowing whether it truly happened or not.
Is it real?
Is it real? Is it just in my mind? Even though I still fight with that to this day, I'm constantly reminded of that man who was never unsure of anything in my entire life, in that moment was sweating. And he couldn't even look me in the eye. He couldn't even look me in the eye. And if you had known who he was, it would make that much more of an impact. But for me, I have never seen him that way in my life. Even having a stroke, he would still look me straight in the eye and, you know, non-verbally communicate poorly, but with strength and gusto.
Yeah.
So,
wow, what an experience that is. But it definitely sounds very validating, because if he didn't do it, I think obviously to negate that it ever happened, and honey, what are you talking about, would have came out of his mouth, you know. This is not unusual. It is hard for someone to confront their abuser. That is unusual. But to come to that reality that this happened to me normally happens when they become an adult. It's the adult that now begins to realize they need to heal. We're going to continue this conversation on child sexual abuse right after this message.
Ray, I don't know. Are you sure clicking this thing will get us online?
Well, try dragging it. Faster.
You're just a mouse click away from a better way to rent movies. Blockbuster Total Access. Movies through the mail plus movies through the store. One low price.
Here's the problem. We forgot to plug it in.
Oh, don't even think about it.
Get a free trial at your Blockbuster store or Blockbuster.com.
When your cable's on the fritz, you get frustrated. When you get frustrated, your daughter imitates. When your daughter imitates, she gets thrown out of school. When she gets thrown out of school, she meets undesirables. When she meets undesirables, she ties the knot with undesirables. And when she ties the knot with undesirables, you get a grandson with a dog collar. Don't have a grandson with a dog collar. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. We are talking with Kacy Baecker about the traumatic experience that she went through as a child of sexual abuse. And we are now going to talk to Kacy about her healing journey. She had a very interesting way of healing herself. Although she's had, different counselors through the years, finally, she found a way where she can express some of that pain and help heal herself. So, Kacy, we have one of your paintings right here, and we have a few more that we want to talk about. This one is interesting. So tell us a little bit about this painting.
This is the first one in a series. I actually created this for the SAS show, which I now know will be in this October. And this is the origin. This is the family shot. This is where everything started. So you have the family picture of my mother and father, my sister and brother, and then I'm the baby in the middle.
You're the baby on mommy's lap.
Yep.
What's interesting, this looks like a real happy family, and there's light here. But it's really kind of dark back here, and it's a dark moon. Mm-hmm. So what's going on in the background? Because this looks happy family. There's a family picture, but back here it's contrasted.
Absolutely. I actually picked a weeping willow tree because to me it kind of symbolized it's something beautiful and yet very sad at the same time. I picked Dark of the Moon because it's all about the hidden and the mysterious and the shadow side, the unknown. And I actually picked their thorns, but they're supposed to be from roses. Yeah. On some of them, you can see roses that are very specifically placed next to my family.
So that says so much. Here's this happy looking, here's the happy family, but there are thorns.
Yes.
Around this facade.
Mm-hmm. And to me, that really represented where I came from. We were I wouldn't say picture perfect family, but that's how my parents wanted it to be perceived, as we were happy, they were outgoing, we did everything together, and it wasn't that way on the inside. Like the rose, my father actually loves roses. It's a beautiful flower, but if you go to touch it, it hurts.
If you grab too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you another, and you don't have to answer this, but of the three of you, who's happy? 3 children. Who's happy?
None of them.
Really? None of them.
I have often done a lot of research, and I'm very aware that it's not likely for the youngest to be the only one abused, but my sister and brother have both been asked by my mother and say they don't recall any abuse happening to themselves or to me.
Might be something that they can't face, and like you have blocked it out, but you were willing to face the pain in order to work through the pain.
With me, it was more survival, because they have some functionality in their lives, but with me, it was either I need to face this or I'm going to die.
Okay. I love this piece. Gave me chills. Why don't you bring the next piece over here? We'll put it up here also.
This next piece is for my father, because now we go through the family more individualized.
So this is your father. This is a painting of your father.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice it seems like he's reptilian, like a snake, a rattlesnake.
It's actually a worm.
A worm?
A worm body. For me, it's something that's very wet and squirmy and disgusting, and it just kind of, it creaks into the crevices of the ground. So it really, to me, in my mind, it almost is like it's violating the ground in the same way I felt violated.
Okay. His teeth.
Excuse me. I seem to have this great obsession with cracked and gnarly teeth. I think it has to do with the things coming out of his mouth just being bitter and cruel and broken and disgusting.
So not his teeth actually, but what he says.
Yes.
Okay. This moon is different, and this here, I get a feel of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Absolutely. It's actually a sun. To me, it's supposed to be like
a sun. I'm sorry.
It's like a dark sun.
It's a dark sun. It's not
almost like an eclipsed
sun.
sun. Yeah.
Not a happy sun.
Not at all. Well, we both share the same sun sign. We're both Capricorn.
Oh.
Which also up here is for the astronomers the constellation for Capricorn.
Yes, it is. It's the constellation right up there.
Mm-hmm. Because he's actually a triple Capricorn. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising.
Oh.
So for the astrologers out there, it explains quite a bit of his restrictiveness and power.
And power.
He had a lot of power in my family. He ruled.
Wow. That is amazing. I love this. This one I saw once before. This almost made me cry. I really feel this one tremendously. I feel all your paintings, but this one just hits me as, I don't know, that frustration or that, where am I going or what am I doing or I don't know. It's just intense. This is an intense painting for me. What's going on here? These hands are so telltale.
This one is actually for my mother. I have one for each of the people in my family. And this is how I most remembered her when I was a child, looking out the window waiting for her to come home.
So these are your hands. These are a little girl's hands waiting for mommy to come home. And it's very dark again. There's the window, her hands stand out, and there's the darkness of outside.
Mm-hmm. This is very similar to what I actually would look out because we had a dirt driveway and trees lining the front. Even our house was hidden, kind of like the secrets within me. And I would stare out all the way at the end of the driveway. We had this little lantern. And I would wait and I would look outside because you could see the cars coming because we were the only house on our street. I lived in Southampton, so there was I was in the middle of the woods in North Sea. There was nothing anywhere. So you would see a car, I'm like, that's her, she's coming home. And then they'd keep going. I'm like, oh, it's not. And the plant, I don't know if it's actually discernible with the light, but it's a butterfly bush.
Oh.
And to me, it represented my mom because even though I know she loved me, she was kind of aloof in the whole situation. She really was completely unaware of what was going on.
With you.
Yeah.
And the pain that you were going through. And all you were doing was waiting for her to come home, almost like to rescue you from that day.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I love this one very much. Well, I love all your paintings. This really hits you.
This next one is for my sister, who was unfortunately a great verbal abuser as well. She took after my father in the way that she could cut you down with her words and really just shred any amount of confidence that I had and just break it. She really had a knack for breaking my spirit. Mm-hmm. And in the end, I wanted her to love me, and I just wanted to have that picture-perfect sister relationship. Yeah. She was the oldest of us and the older sister, but she was so beautiful and obsessed with beauty, which is why you see half of it. You have this very aesthetically pleasing and beautiful face, but the inside
not so beautiful.
No.
Now you talk about her and her anger. She seems to be a very angry person.
Very.
And with no real rhyme or reason as far as she says.
Correct. I mean,
she was very upset that you did not have your father arrested, like all these years later. Like,
very.
It was that easy.
She actually went to the police station to report without me, and they told her that you can't do that. It has to be the person who was actually abused. And from that point on, I have not spoken to her. She has no communication with me. I don't even get to see my nieces.
And that's not you. That's her. She doesn't want to speak to you.
Yes.
That's not you implementing that.
Nope.
What are these? Dragon?
Venus flytraps.
Venus flytraps.
Yes.
Why?
Well, this is actually the Venus flytrap flower, and I did a little research trying to find the plant for her. And I was quite impressed with the fact that it's such a beautiful flower, but the plant is incredibly cruel. It literally kills its prey and sucks the life out of it. And though I love my sister dearly, sometimes that's kind of how it feels.
Ah, beautiful, but sucks the life out of you, which counts for this face. Wow. Why'd you bring the other one?
And this next one is for my brother. That's okay.
Okay. It's a little boy here.
Yeah. Of all of the people in my family, I was actually the closest with him. We were best friends as children. As I got older, we ended up having a lot of issues. He was sent away because he had severe ADHD and possibly undiagnosed Asperger's, in my opinion. So he was very ostracized from not only our family, but the community as large. And he just seemed so sad and lost. I tried to protect him when I was a child.
Big brother.
Yeah, by 6 years. But I felt protective of him because he was so easily taken advantage of. And as he got older and when he was sent away, once he came back, he became so vicious to me. Only me. And he would constantly lash out at me.
That's interesting. Who is he actually close to now? If you're going to say he's close to anybody at all. It's very difficult with Asperger's. If he was. Yeah.
I would say my mother, only because she takes care of his financial things, because he doesn't actually live in one place. He kind of travels all over the world up and down through the seasons. But she watches his mail and makes sure that he gets, if he has a paycheck, she puts it in his bank account. That's the closest he is with anyone in our family. I haven't seen him in years. He stopped speaking to me when I was 15. And he sees my father maybe every couple years for like a weekend.
He'll see your father.
He sees him, but I know that it's not a good time for either of them because my brother becomes very angry and he lashes out. My sister has no relationship with my father whatsoever.
Scorpion. Why?
He is a triple Scorpio.
Oh, he's a triple Scorpio. Your father's a triple Capricorn. This one's a triple Scorpio. Water and earth make mud.
Yes.
It's what it makes. Oh, my goodness. This is really sad.
It is.
Very sad. Very dark.
Now, the last one I have, and the largest, it's unfinished. But this one...
on this one?
Yes.
Unfinished piece.
It was important for me to bring what I had because this one is me. This is the end result of what I am attaining to have as a healed person, as a survivor of abuse. And cherry blossoms to me...
Cherry blossoms, how beautiful that is.
They come around during spring. It's the epitome of everything. And then the sun is beginning to rise, pushing away the dark clouds.
It's the beginning of a new day and a new life. How beautiful. I love the cherry blossoms all around like that. That's just gorgeous. Gorgeous. I love this piece, and it's not even done yet. You're not completely done here.
I'm not.
But this looks like
a pregnant
belly.
woman. Yeah, pregnant with life, my new life.
It's birth, it's rebirth, it's new beginnings, new life, new day. Beautiful. I love it. I can't wait to see this finish. So are you getting all this ready for the SASH show?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it because compared to my first year, it's really refreshing to look at what I have this time.
Well, the first year you didn't really know about the show. You kind of like very rushed, got it together.
Yes.
And got your pieces up, and they were great. They were very, they really hit you. Real quick, could you tell us what the show is? What's the full name?
I believe it's Sexual Abuse Survivor Show.
Sexual Abuse Survivor Show, held, by the way, by FEGS. And that's going to be held in October. We'll be right back in a moment.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hogshair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware.
We have 3 of the largest showrooms of safes on display and in stock. You can see and touch them in person instead of browsing a catalog. We carry gun and rifle safes, burglary safes, jewelry safes, fire rated from a half hour to 2 hours. Famous name brands.
We sell Gardol.
We sell AMSAC.
The new AMSAC touchscreen.
If you're ever in need of a safe, think Brooklyn's best locksmith and hardware. Right, Lockie?
That's right, Alan.
This is Beth.
Hi.
Oh, congratulations. When are you due?
I'm not pregnant.
Oh, look at that. Excuse me.
You're totally thin.
You look very sexy.
For life's bleachable moments, all it takes is 3/4 of a cup.
Welcome back to Voices on Madhouse Reality TV. We've been talking to Kacy Baecker, and she has shared her story, a very courageous story, very difficult story to share, of child sexual abuse. She showed us her journey and the artwork she has used to help her healing and her process. This is a very difficult situation. We have reported incidences, but so many are unreported. Like Kacy, not reporting it as a child, not knowing what was going on, what was hurting her, where was the pain coming from, to now becoming a woman and realizing all of this pain has come from this one situation that a child can't put into words. What are the words? What are the words to say something like that? There are no words. So difficult. And so this happens so often, much more often than we like to know, much more often than we want to admit to. Because if we admit to it, then is it our responsibility as people in this community to do something about it for our children? I thank you so much for being on this show.
Thank you.
What I'd like to know is, do you have some words of advice or encouragement for those ladies who are still working through this process, who are still feeling some of the pain, they haven't confronted their abuser? And I got to tell you, as a therapist, I don't always encourage anybody to confront. I'm not, as a rule, the abuser themselves, I'm not going to validate you.
Absolutely not.
And it could be even more painful when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky for you, at that point, it sounds like you had gained a lot of strength, and also you had a strong support system to help you through it.
Yes.
You know, and so when you confronted him, you had that support, which is very important if you agree to have that support.
Absolutely. I absolutely would not be where I'm at right now without my girlfriend. She has been such an amazing support, and she got me through all of the emotions when a lot of times they were completely overwhelming, and she herself didn't know how to deal with what was coming up, because being painful for me, she felt pain as well.
Of course.
And it's very difficult when I myself, even knowing that I have been sexually molested, not knowing how to express the pain that I'm feeling, because sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I really am completely confused and conflicted on, am I angry and am I hurt? I'm not sure. I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion. But if there's any words I would like to say, it's that you're not alone. For me, one of the most comforting things I can think of was that once I came out, which is why I wanted to come on your show, I realized how many other people are also either victims or survivors. And I say that because some people are still the victim. They're still wounded and they can't heal. I know I'm fortunate because of my support system that I was able to heal, but there are many people out there who are stuck in the victim state, and some can't even access the acknowledgement that they are abused.
Or still to have it blocked. They don't
Right.
even know what their emotional distress is really coming from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they haven't been able to put that into words or define it. So difficult, and so difficult to talk about it, come out and say it.
Yes.
Because, like, who wants to hear it, right?
It makes
You
everyone
feel that?
uncomfortable.
It makes
It's a
everybody
taboo.
uncomfortable in the room. All right? You know, you say it, you've now got the guts, you feel strong enough, I'm going to say this. And it's like you could see the discomfort in a room of people that was like, oh, child sexual molestation, wow. We're going to talk about something like that. That's really taboo. It's taboo to do it. It's taboo to talk about it.
Right. It's one of those, okay, if it happened, just keep it to yourself.
I know.
It's making me uncomfortable. I don't want to hear that.
And we could talk about everything else, but we can't talk about this very, very deleterious thing that we're doing to our children, and that we're not saying, all right, we need more legislation. We need to look at this closely. And what do we tell our children? How do we protect our children? You know? And the schools, like you said, they say, well, if somebody touches you, even if it's not a private place, but you feel uncomfortable, you should say something about it. But no one actually does say, what if it was a relative or a close friend of the family that you consider a relative? Because, you know, there are a lot of children that say Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so, and that's really not a blood relative, but it's that kind of a close person. We don't talk about that.
No.
But I want to add one more thing. So, you know, because this is the work that I do. And so many women who have come to me, like yourself, who have said, this happened to me as a child, and the reaction was negative, that the child said something, and it was their fault. They asked for it. What did you do to bring this on? This kind of reaction, very harmful, because not only were they victimized in a sexual way, but now they're not even validated in their pain.
Absolutely.
And I've had some young girls that were thrown in the street at the age of 13, thrown in the street. So how do we speak to a child that says, this happened to me? How do we speak to a child that says, you know, Daddy hurt me, or Grandpa hurt me, or, you know, Auntie hurt me? You know, how do we address that? We're very uncomfortable. We don't want to believe the other person someone that we thought was a responsible human being would do such a thing. Right. But I have to say, right now, children do not tend to make up this kind of story. Children do not make, small children, if they come to you, the most important thing is, although your insides are tearing up, although you don't know what to do with this information, you need to look calm. You need to validate that child. You need to tell them they are going to be safe, that you are going to make certain that they're safe, and you need to take steps to make them safe. You need to give them that confidence so they can express themselves completely. This is what a child needs. This is what you needed in those days. But had someone actually paid attention to what was going on with you? And maybe even just ask the question, has anyone ever hurt you? Have you ever been touched? You know, we don't want to talk about that. As a therapist, it's a difficult question to ask.
Absolutely.
Of a small child. And some people say, well, you're going to put things in their head. Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think a child that says, that can describe certain things, I think we need to listen to that.
I agree.
And
the validation is key.
Oh, key.
Because
you're hurt and I want to help you and I want to keep you safe.
Right, and to know that you're safe. The problem is a lot of times, even my mother had asked me, why didn't you come to me? And my response is, who would have believed me? Who would have believed me? Even as an adult, you know, coming and confronting to my mom, it's just kind of like, how could that be? How could that possibly happen? Yeah. You know, once you look at all of the details, it becomes more realistic, but that's as an adult. Now, if I was a small child, 4 or 5, and I went to my mother saying this happened and it's, how could that be? I'd be crushed and be, well, now I'm delusional.
Right.
On top of everything else.
But on top of that, the fear of, well, they don't believe in me. And then you're not going to go further. See, as an adult, you're going to go, okay, they don't believe me, but I'm going to go the next step further because you have the words also.
Yes.
The child doesn't have the words
to
express this situation. So I thank you. Thank you so much for being so courageous to come on the show and talk about your experience and show us your artwork, which I always love your artwork. It always reminds me, it's not that it reminds me, I feel so much from your artwork, you know, it just, abuse, Voices has been about abuse. We're going to, I just need to say that we're going to be taking a little time off because of personal illness. I haven't been feeling well. However, this has been my work. This is my passion. I work at this 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes more. That does not account for all the research I do and the programs I create and the lectures that I create and I provide. That doesn't count those hours. Abuse happens. Abuse happens to children like Kacy when she was a child. Abuse happens to adults. Abuse happens to the disabled and to the elderly. And abuse happens to animals. Abuse happens. And we need to open our eyes. And we need to say as a community, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to do something about it. You need to send your letters to senators, change legislation. The change has happened, but it happens a little slow. Let's speed that up a bit and protect our children and protect our disabled and our elderly and protect all individuals because we are all related. Mitakuyasen, and I thank you. Good evening. You're wonderful.